give us a sense of the numbers, give us a sense of some of the markers, you know, we should be aiming to hit.
Well, you know, the numbers I'm giving is the average. So if you're below this number, you're below average. So the higher you are above it, that's great for you. So if you're a 30-year-old male, you should be able to do a minimum of 21 normal push-ups. Now, most 30-year-olds would find that pretty difficult. After 15, they're sucking diesel. You'll find the vast majority. And for a female, and the women do it, the females do it with their knees on the ground. Men must do the normal push-ups. And obviously, when you get to 40-year-old, it's 16, 50-year-old, it's 12. And that may seem very easy. But, you know, when you go home tonight, go down and try and do, if you're under 30 years of age, in fact, if you're under 20 years of age, it's 30 push-ups. So
is that the same number for male and female, but female do it with their knees on the ground?
No, females, for a 30-year-old female, a 30-year-old male would be required to do 21 normal push-ups, whereas a 30-year-old female has to do 14 modified push-ups. Because remember, women have much, much lower muscle strength than men, so you wouldn't expect them to attain the same value. Joe, you know, primary aging starts around the age of 30. So regardless of our nutrition or our exercise habits, we are going to lose muscle mass. But the rate at which we lose it can be affected by our lifestyle. So if we don't maintain muscle mass, and a great example is when we're young and we're playing lots of sports, we use our fast twitch fibers every time we're sprinting. I mean, think about it. After you retire from competitive sport, you probably never sprint again. So those fast twitch fibers, if they're not used, what happens is they become dislodged from the nerves, so therefore you can't use them anymore. If you can't use them, they just atrophy and they waste away, and you can't get them back. So it's very, very important after the age of 30, and particularly in young women. Young women really don't appreciate this. One of the others, and the reason we designed these tests, Joe, was they had to be simple, and you had to be able to do them at home. So another very simple test was to sit on a chair, a regular chair, with your arms across your chest on your shoulders, and to be able to stand and sit as many times as you possibly could in 30 seconds. So again, for a 30-year-old male, they would be expected to do 24 of those in 30 seconds. And a female 30-year-old, 23. And again, as you get older, a 40-year-old male, 2 less, it would be 22. And a 40-year-old female, 2 less, it would be 21. But, you know, it's amazing the number of people that get to the age of 40, 45, 50, and all of a sudden you ask them to do these tests and they just say, I just did not realize what has happened.
Yes, and to give us a sense of how rapidly we go downhill, and not to be ageist as well, if there's a 60-year-old out there wondering about that chair exercise, what should they be aiming at?
A 60-year-old male would be 18.
Okay.
So up and down 18 times in 30 seconds. If you're a female, 17 times. And believe it or not, we lose the strength in our lower body faster than we do in our upper body. So maintaining that lower body, and as I did on Operation Transformation last year, I got people to get up off a chair without using their hands. It's amazing. We just start to, as we age, it means that if you're using your hands to get up from a chair, it means you're compensating for a lack of muscle mass or a lack of strength. Because when you were 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, you jumped out of the chair.
Yes.
So we're compensating. The other one then obviously is your waist, your height. So you take your height, you measure your height and your waist circumference. And if your waist circumference is more than half of your height, you're in trouble.
And what metrics are we using here? Inches, centimeters?
Either or.
Okay, it applies to both.
Either or. That's clearly indicating. And the worst place, and we see it a lot, particularly men and women, but more so in men, this increased body weight, but particularly around the midsection, because that results in an array of metabolic diseases. It increases your risk, obviously, for diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. So that's the worst place. But unfortunately, these are the people who COVID-19 absolutely love.
Yes, okay.
The virus loves people who have metabolic diseases, and that's that waist to height ratio is a good yardstick to where you currently rank. So this is basically standing on one leg, again with your arms crossed. But what you have to do is close your eyes, because once you close your eyes, you lose your sense of where you are in time and space. And then you find how long you can stand on one leg, but you can't shuffle around on the leg that's stationary. You have to stand dead straight. And again, you know, that's one of the fitness components that really deteriorates very, very rapidly as we age. For a 30-year-old, you should be able to, and you're a male, you should be able to hold that balance for a minimum of 8 seconds. Now, remember all these numbers that I'm giving. This is the average. You know, in an ideal world, you'd like to be in the top 25%. So add 25% odds to the numbers that I'm giving you. That's the ideal scenario. This is the minimum, because if you're below these numbers, then you're below the minimum, you know, the threshold, the average threshold, and it means that you've work to do. For balance, for a 30-year-old woman, again, it's 8 seconds. It's pretty much the same for men and women. You should be able to hold that balance. And that requires, as we age, we should be doing exercises. Like, there are different exercises that we can do to maintain our balance as we age.
Well, I'll ask you about them in a moment. And so for a 60-year-old male and female, when it comes to their balance?
Well, for 5 seconds.
5, okay.
To be able to hold that. Now, oddly enough, you know, when we would do this cold turkey on people, the first 1 or 2 times they would do it, because when you're out walking and all of a sudden you hit a curb and your balance, you can't repeat it, that, you know, you can't, oh, I'll come back and I'll try again. You know, you're down and that's it. So for the vast majority of people that we did, they were back on their feet within 2 seconds. So it's really frightening how quickly we lose our balance. Because we don't do those simple exercises that allow us to maintain our balance, like that test, if you were to do that balance just at home practicing that, it's amazing, within 3 weeks, you'll probably get a 50% improvement. So what you do is, what's the maximal distance you can cover in 12 minutes? It can be jogging entirely, it can be walking entirely, or it can be a combination of jog, run, walk, whatever you want. So it's entirely up to the individual. And that's a really good, because that measures our cardiovascular fitness. And of all the fitness indices that we measure, this is probably the best predictor of both your current and your future health.
Right.
So if I was to take you into the lab and put a mouthpiece, and you would sit there for 10 minutes and I put a mouthpiece and measured how much oxygen you were consuming, you'd consume around 3.5 milliliters for every kilogram. We refer to that as 1 MET. That's your resting oxygen uptake. At a minimum, every single person up to the age of 60, 70 at maximal exercise should be able to consume oxygen at 10 times their resting level. That's 35. That's the yardstick I always say. If you're above 35, the likelihood of you developing a chronic disease in the next 5 years or so is reduced dramatically.
Okay.
So that's a big, big number. So the distances, you know, we'll start with females this time. So it's around 2,000 meters if you're a 30-year-old female. And that, by 60 years of age, it's around 1,800 meters.
In 12 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a brisk walk or a jog. Now, you probably will not be able to cover it unless you can, part of it will involve jogging. And there are people who have musculoskeletal issues that, you know, does not allow them to jog. So this is ideally, it presumes that you're going to do a combination of walking and jogging. For a guy, around 2,400 meters if you're 30 years of age.
Okay, so 2.4K in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is it's certainly doable.
Yeah.
Certainly doable. But you would find, for 30-year-olds in Ireland, you probably 30% would not be able to attain that currently. Believe it or not.
And what about the 60-year-old male in 12 minutes?
2,000.
Okay, so a flat 2K go.
Flat 2K. Well, it's 2,076, but 2K roughly in 12 minutes. So that's 6 minutes per K. And now with our phones, and we have all of the GPS on our phones, it's so easy to measure. So now people have a yardstick. So here are the key components. And the nice thing about this, you could be very strong on 2 and weak on the other 2. So the focus is, okay, maintain where you are, but really put a little bit of extra work into the ones where you're weak, or it may only be 1. So that's the nice thing about this, is that you can see where your weaknesses are from a health perspective.